And then it started to go over, and it went over very, very slowly. I assumed it would go over on its side only. It just kept going and going, and pretty soon I was watching the cab crush in, and the windows crush, the glass was breaking, the dash was crumbling, and it was going over on its top is what it was doing. When it came to a stop, the load shifted, and that's when it was real violent. It just took me and threw me to the passenger side of the cab, and it just jammed me right into the corner on my back.
The roadbed gave way under the right rear off dual, and the truck rolled upside down in the ditch about 12 feet below the roadbed surface.
I was pretty bruised up I was off for about 4 months. I was bruised from about the middle of my back down to my thigh, and I had a big blood clot on my back, which never did go away. They had to take me into surgery and have that drained. I was lucky.
If I hadn't been wearing my seatbelt, I would have been seriously injured, because as a result of the seatbelt, I was held suspended upside down in the cab. Without it, I'd have been thrown all around the cab, possibly broken my neck because I ended up directly upside down in the vehicle. I'm a very fortunate person indeed.
Over the past 25 years, RMC Pacific Materials drivers have averaged about 1 rollover a year. Some years had none, 1 year had 7. Unfortunately, it seems that the frequency of rollovers has been increasing, even among the most experienced drivers. This may be due to a combination of factors: more traffic congestion, tighter streets, and other driving hazards. There's also the changing dynamics of contemporary job sites, like construction projects on steep hillsides, and other places where before it might have seemed unimaginable to build. By far, the most important concern with rollovers is human safety. Employees have been seriously injured, and rollovers have injured members of the general public. Fortunately, no fatalities have occurred. To prevent rollovers, one of the first things to understand is that a mixer truck doesn't drive like a normal truck. For one thing, a mixer has a high center of gravity. In a normal vehicle, the center of gravity is near the middle, and it's hardly ever higher than the top of the tires. In a mixer, the center of gravity is closer to the driver's side and above the subframe, and it changes according to the drum's speed, load, and slump. A mixer truck's weight is not centered either side to side or front to rear. In a normal vehicle, the weight is distributed equally, right and left. But a loaded mixer weighs more on the driver's side when the drum is turning. The rotating load of concrete inside the drum affects the truck's handling too. As the drum turns clockwise, it moves the concrete to the driver's side of the truck. The concrete is moving both up and down and front and rear, directed by the fins inside. The movement of the concrete is affected by both truck speed and the turning speed of the drum. If the drum speed is fast, the concrete moves forward. Slower, the concrete flattens out, moving to the back. The reverse is true for truck speed. A faster truck, the mixture moves back and forward when slower. Driving characteristics and dynamics of the truck are constantly changing, making a mixer truck much less stable than a normal vehicle. Driving a mixer truck takes expertise. It is a more complex vehicle to maneuver. Even the most experienced driver's attention can be distracted, resulting in loss of focus and possible accidents. Because of the truck's varying loads, different dynamics, and drivability, they have constantly changing handling characteristics. Each truck has different dynamics and constantly changing factors. The load, the speed, the hazards of different construction sites.
You have to keep your mind about you. You can't be daydreaming when you're handling the vehicle because it just gets you in trouble.
It's altogether different than anything else you can drive. You can't take it like you're driving a car, I'll tell you.
More than half of all rollovers involve turns. This is because a number of factors combine to make the truck less stable than other vehicles. its high center of gravity, the unequal weight distribution, and the rotating fluid motion of the concrete. How does a truck come to roll over? We took our mixer to Freightliner's test track in Madras, Oregon, so we could clearly show the dynamics of rollovers. The driver is Matt Markstaller, Freightliner test engineer with over 15 years experience.
During the testing, we installed the safety outriggers. These are standard equipment whenever we run a test of this extreme nature. They don't affect the handling of the truck and they don't affect the tip-up, but they do prevent it from rolling over. Several times I'll make reference to vehicle tip-up. This refers to when the inside tires of the vehicle actually lift off the ground. This may lead to vehicle rollover if corrective action isn't taken immediately. The most surprising thing for me was that this vehicle will tip up and over at speeds above about 10 miles an hour, and it has to do with the high center of gravity of this vehicle. Any speed above about 10 miles an hour is potentially a rollover situation. At a soft job site or at an off-camber corner, these speeds could be much lower than even the 10 miles an hour. One thing I did notice is that the drive wheels would lose traction right before it would tip up, and this gave me time to reduce speed and straighten the wheels. So if you ever notice your drive wheels lose traction, that means tip up is imminent. What that sounds like is the engine racing, because the tires are racing without traction. If you ever hear that or feel that, slow down right away and then continue through your corner. Remember, if tip up occurs, do not brake. Turn the steering wheel in the opposite direction to bring the vehicle back down, and then brake.
Rollovers have happened in many kinds of turning situations. Islands or curbs, freeway ramps, job sites, and curves in the road.
One situation that we found to be particularly hazardous is when the drive wheel would hit a curb. This will literally launch the vehicle and cause it to turn over at thresholds much lower than on flat pavement. If you anticipate hitting a curb, or if you do hit a curb, straighten the wheel right away and reduce your speed until the vehicle becomes controllable again.
The primary reason for having the trailer axle is to meet California bridge laws. The truck acts differently when the trailer axle is pressurized versus unpressurized. An improper setting can make the truck extremely difficult to control. Here's how it works. When the mixer is empty, the trailer axle is up, and the weight is distributed to steer and drive axles. When the mixer is loaded, the trailer axle needs to be correctly pressurized to maintain proper weight distribution to each axle. If there's too much pressure, the drive axles become unloaded, so there's a reduction of traction on the rear tires. If there's not enough pressure, the load, which deflected the tires, isn't relieved, so the tires remain deflected and there's not enough weight to the steer axle and trailer tires. With either too much or too little pressure, the lateral stability of the truck is reduced, with a greater possibility of rollover. It's like changing the contact with the road from 12 tires to 4. Trailer axle pressure needs to be reset, not just every morning, but with every load, to ensure that all axles have maximum stability and proper weight distribution. Each truck has a placard to list correct pressure settings and a gauge which typically varies from 1,000 to 3,000 psi. Some rollovers have occurred because the trailer axle pressure was set incorrectly and the driver was unable to control the truck.
Some of the more interesting tests that we conducted were with about a half of a mixer load. With the trailer overpressurized, as it would be for a full mixer load, the rollover threshold dropped a full 5 miles an hour in the same corner. So it's vital that that trailer be pressurized correctly for partial loads.
Dispatchers and batchmen must assist the drivers in determining their gross weight. This is important with loads of sand slurry, lightweight, and the like. Many rollovers involve improper speed for existing road configurations and conditions. The driver may not have been going faster than the posted speed limit, but the driver was moving at a speed unsafe for a mixer truck and the road configurations and conditions.
Here we are simulating a flat city intersection with a 90-degree right-hand turn, taken at speeds of between 10 and 16 miles per hour. Even at 10 miles an hour with a sharp corner like this, you can feel the loss of traction indicating impending lift-up. The vehicle reaches the point where it will actually roll over at around 14 miles per hour. This next maneuver simulates gradual expressway turns, taken from about 25 miles per hour to around 31 miles per hour. You'll notice that the vehicle looks good at 25 miles per hour and it feels good from the cab. But at 27, the inside wheels begin to lift off and the vehicle can roll over if corrective action isn't taken. There's very little warning of liftoff before it occurs. The main thing that I learned from these maneuvers is how little difference there is in speed and lateral acceleration between what feels like good vehicle handling and what can lead to tip-up and ultimately rollover if corrective action isn't taken.
Some of the RMC rollovers that involve speed include going too fast turning at an intersection, going too fast on a sloped freeway ramp, and going too fast losing control and ending up in the lane of oncoming traffic. Another kind of speeding problem. The truck is in too high a gear, going downhill and burning out the brakes. The truck then is going too fast to get into a lower gear and careens downhill out of control. Drivers who put their truck into neutral to pick up speed can find themselves, like this situation, unable to get the truck back into gear. While many things out on the road are out of the driver's control, one thing the driver can control is speed. It's critical to slow down around curves, corners, and ramps, and use the right gear, especially going downhill. A slower speed helps maintain control of the mixer and can prevent a rollover.
Some of you will be driving vehicles equipped with an anti-lock braking system. This system functions to where you can slam on the brakes as hard as you can and it will prevent the wheels from locking. Others of you will not have this system, and if you slam on the brakes it may lock the wheels. So with the ABS, put your foot to the floor and the vehicle will remain under control. If you don't have the ABS, pay attention for signs of skidding and then let up as that situation would dictate.
It's also important to keep a safe following distance. Stay back 4 seconds behind the vehicle in front, more if it's wet or slippery. Having to take evasive action to avoid hitting the vehicle in front can result in loss of control and a rollover.
The last type of maneuver we did simulated an accident avoidance or a quick lane change. If you find yourself in a situation where an incident is in front of you on a highway, you're going to have to steer around it. You may have to put more steering input into the vehicle than you're comfortable with that will induce the wheel lift off. It's important in this situation that once you get around or by the obstacle, that you make a turn in the other direction to bring the wheel back down. So there are certain situations at freeway speeds where simply stopping isn't going to be the best thing to do. While maneuvering a vehicle in town, you can always stop or slow the vehicle more safely than you can turn. So if you're ever in doubt, stop the vehicle.
Once a driver gets off the road, the risk of a rollover escalates because of the soft, unstable soil. Job sites often have soft ramps, banks, and trenches that have been the scene of numerous rollovers. Every job site is unique. Most of them are like an obstacle course of vehicles, mobile equipment, poured foundations, rebar, and other building supplies that a mixer truck has to jockey around. Job sites themselves vary from day to day. Check with dispatch for changing traffic patterns and routing on job sites. It's always a good idea for the driver to get out and walk the site, to look over the places where the truck will be driven. The wheels on the front of a ready-mix truck always turn wider than the rear wheels. Rollovers have occurred when the rear wheels turned inside the path of the front wheels, hit soft dirt, obstacles, or weak shoulders, and rolled over. Ditches, excavations, and recently backfilled areas are especially hazardous for a mixer truck. A rule of thumb is to stay as far away from a ditch as it is deep, or 1-to-1. So generally, a safe distance from an 8-foot ditch is 8 feet. To dump into a trench, the mixer should be backed perpendicular to it. So if there's a cave-in, the truck's back end might get stuck, but it won't roll over. When you are pouring parallel to a ditch, use the appropriate number of chutes to allow you to adhere to the 1-to-1 rule, but no more than 3. If not, a cave-in could lead to a rollover. At night, job sites are even more dangerous.
These jobs change dramatically from day to day. So it's always a good idea, especially if you're unfamiliar with a job, or at night when it's dark, to get out and have a look. Even if there are other trucks there, get out and have a look anyway. When we came out here, originally, this was all dirt out here. None of this asphalt was here. These curbs were not in this parking lot. We came back at about 3 o'clock in the morning for a pour inside the building, and it had rained. And all of these holes here were full of water. The parking lot was wet. They had a pump set up in this area over here. As I pulled away from the pump, I turned and put the left front wheel of the truck into one of these holes, not seeing it, and done damage to the front of the truck.
Often, lights face the job and not the place where the load will be dumped. Staying alert is critical. Drivers should always be aware of the surroundings and conditions. Most rollovers don't happen when people are fresh at the beginning of the shift. Rollovers usually happen near the end of the shift, when drivers are less alert.
One thing we see here in the Bay Area and throughout California is congested freeways. And I know you travel in and out, you're going through numerous interchanges that are incredibly busy. Virtually every time you go through one of those interchanges, you will be cut off by other vehicles. It will happen today, it'll happen tomorrow, it'll happen the next day. That's a virtual guarantee. What you have to do is prepare for the unexpected, which is no longer unexpected, it is the routine. So as you're driving, consider the limitations of your vehicle, that high center of gravity, that longer stopping distance, the inability to maneuver properly, and make sure you slow down and maintain that good, safe following discipline of the car in front of you. One of the fundamental misconceptions that a lot of commercial drivers have in today's world is the rules regarding seatbelts or safety restraints in commercial vehicles. With the inception of the seatbelt laws in 1986, there was an exemption for any vehicle over 6,001 pounds. About 5 years ago, that exception was eliminated. Now you can consider any commercial vehicle the same laws as passenger vehicles. That means anybody in those vehicles must be restrained by a proper seatbelt system. When we talk about the dynamics of a collision, one of the unique features of a ready-mix truck is the high center of gravity and its propensity, if involved in a collision, to overturn. That even makes the necessity of wearing the seatbelt even greater.
A number of RMC Pacific Materials employees who were wearing seatbelts during a rollover were not injured. In fact, they had no medical expenses, while their trucks sustained damages of as much as $57,000.
One of the safest advice I give you is make a clean, efficient cab. Anything in that cab can be a flying missile that can cause serious, or in some cases, fatal injuries to people if it's not properly secured.
Suicide knobs are equally dangerous. When they fail, drivers have broken wrists and fingers, and trucks have gone out of control. Under no conditions shall they be installed on trucks.
It's very important that we just think all the time how we're driving that truck, because it's a big truck, and if we hit anybody, it's all over for them.
One of the things that a driver needs to keep in mind on a job site is that if he feels that it's unsafe, if he doesn't feel that it's safe to put the truck where the contractor wants it, he not only has the right to tell the contractor that he can't do it, he has a responsibility.
Rollovers. What are the best ways for a mixer driver to prevent them? Drive at a safe speed, which may not be the posted speed. A good guideline is 10 miles slower than the posted speed limit on a curve. And keep a safe following distance. Slow downhill. Be especially careful when making turns. Be cautious of soft soil, particularly at job sites. Set the correct trailer axle pressure with each load. If a tip-up occurs, don't brake. Steer in the opposite direction, then brake when your tires are back on the ground. Wear seat belts. Keep the cab clean. And stay alert, because a truck rollover can be a matter of life and death.
The fact is, the best thing you can do as an employee and for yourself is to get back to work and make it home safely every day of your workday.
Yeah, I was lucky.
I'm a very fortunate person indeed.